please just stop it!
What a strange person.
In many areas of business, the prevailing advice is to look at what the big boys are doing, and that's what you should do too. How should we talk about our firm? How should we attract more talent? How should we name our firm? And it's that last one that really gets me.
Stop it. Get some help.
And I'll explain why. So what's wrong with this naming method and why so many firms make the same mistake? And 5 approaches to naming your firm so you don't fall into this trap. If you're not one of the mega firms, there's probably precious little that the mega firms are doing that you should ever bother trying to copy, okay? You don't have the same goals, you don't have the same depth, and you most definitely don't have to blindly follow the way that they've named themselves for years. Here's a snapshot of just a few of the top 25 A&E firms from the building design and construction list. Are you seriously ready? DLREYPHGAHDRHO.
You are Cookie Monster.
Now say it with me. Just stop it! But how did we get here? Here's a brief history of why mega firms and not so mega firms are named like they are. In the early days, many firms were named after their founders, like Ove Arup or Joseph J. Jacobs. Now let's say the next partner comes along and wants his name on the business card and the sign too. Well, founders Larry Perkins and Phil Will simply went with Perkins and Will. Like many 20th century brands, IBM and NBC and ABC, others were moving to this in vogue fashion of simplifying their brand down to an acronym. And at some point you get names of founders like George F. Helmuth, Gio Obata, and George Kassebaum, and apologies if I'm butchering those names. And well, they formed HOK. This trend continued and has continued well into the 21st century. Partners get added, names get added to the brand, and the shorthand of acronyms continue to pile up on AEC firm logos. So if all of these big important firms are doing it, then why is it so awful? Well, if your goal is to blend in with all the other firms and create a strong chance your brand will be confused with someone else, I for one say, you do you. Yeah, that's actually terrible advice. This is clearly a problem because there's so much alphabet soup in the AEC industries.
That's bad.
If we can't keep all of these acronyms straight, how in the world are our clients or prospective employees supposed to remember who's who?
Oh, hey, who was that firm we were talking about the other day? You know, the big AEC firm, they've got like the really great remote working policy, or it starts with an H. They have the show about the dragons. Whatever, like you knew.
Look, let me say, before you get too far, there were a few instances where an acronym might make sense. If you are deeply established in the business world and your acronym has enjoyed broad recognition, maybe it's okay. I'd say a few firms in that top 25 list certainly qualify. And 2, if your acronym is actually a word we can say, there are some amazing retail brands with origins as acronyms that we've simply agreed to say the whole thing. Nerf, Lego, NASA, and Geico, just to name a few. If your firm fits in this category, I guess you're off the hook. Otherwise, it is 2024. If you are just now considering an acronym as part of your rebrand, you better have a really good reason, or please just stop it! But because I am a benevolent dictator of all things branding, I'm not here to simply tell you that which you cannot do. I'm going to share with you 5 naming categories that you can use in your AEC firm and the pros and cons of each. So by the end of this video, you might have a better idea which approach is best for you. And while I'm going to use a little bit of legal and trademark terms, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you I'm not an attorney and this is not legal advice. Anything I suggest should be vetted by an intellectual property attorney before you move on towards any type of name or trademark. Now, with that out of the way, let's get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
Our first category of trademarking your firm name is literally called generic. So while you could technically name your firm something like architecture firm, it's not trademarkable. So this one isn't one I'd advise. Category number 2. This is the category that so many of these firm names originally find themselves, and while the name may not be obvious, it's called descriptive, like International Business Machines.
What does IBM stand for? Nothing. It just sounds professional.
Or my firm's original name was Miles Design, and although it can be more difficult to trademark a descriptive name, we were able to do so. So it is possible. So although I don't advise reducing it to an acronym, and I think there are more ideal naming approaches for your firm, a descriptive firm name is tentatively on the yes list. Coming up next is category number 3, and it's a slightly more playful approach to the generic naming convention. It's called suggestive.
I don't think it means what you think it means.
This would be a name like Netflix or Dunkin' Donuts. It's a more playful take than simply calling it Internet Movies or Donuts, but not too far removed. These can be more playful, and if that's a fit for your firm, go for it. You know, if you think of any AEC firms who use this approach, share them with me down in the comments. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single rebranding tip. Next up is for when you call a rose by any name except for a rose. And that's why it's called arbitrary. It's like naming your tech company after a fruit, or your outdated phone after a fruit, or naming your shoe polish after a fruit. Okay, that's a burden. You get the point, right? Populous, Pentagram, and other firms who don't begin with P probably fall into this category. And this is also a solid option for AEC firm brands. Now there's one final category for naming and trademarking your firm. Before we talk about that one, if you're watching a video about naming your AEC firm, you're either thinking about hiring someone like me to help you, or you're considering doing the rebrand work in-house. Well, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I'm launching an exclusive Branding 101 course to teach you everything I know about rebranding in the AEC industry. If you'd like to see if you're a fit, hit the link in the comments below and schedule a free discovery call. It's not a fit for everyone, so find a time and we'll see if you qualify. Now let's get on to our final category. You know, while it sounds a little fussy or frilly, I think that's just in the name, fanciful. A fanciful trademark has its roots in made-up words and brands that sound like their product. Think of the sound that it makes when you open a can of Pepsi. On the AEC front, you might think Arcadis, and although it's also named for Mr. Stanley, you could probably make an argument that Stantec is a fanciful name. This is definitely a category firms should explore. So that's all 5. What?
But wait! There's more!
I hear what you're saying right now, but what about the firms that don't fit neatly into one of these categories? Well, there are definitely mashups. And while I'm not sure that's technically a legal category for a trademark, there are definitely firms who use combinations of these categories in naming themselves. Just please don't use this as an excuse to squeeze in an acronym. But an acronym mashup is certainly more memorable than an acronym alone. So remember, just because big successful firms are using acronyms doesn't mean you should too. Let's say it together.
You are Cookie Monster.
So if you do succeed in choosing a memorable name and securing a trademark, that's a huge win and something so many firms get wrong. But you're not done with your rebrand just yet, because your next step is to watch this video to learn why it's so freaking hard to make decisions during your rebrand and how to get through the process, both confidently and faster. And we'll see you over there.